Welcome. We're so excited that you're joining us today. We have a great presentation in store for you. So if you want to go ahead and type in the chat box where you are signing in from. Oh, Tampa, Florida. Beautiful. I bet it's nice and warm down there today. So luckily not for me, but for some people in Illinois, I do believe they received maybe a dusting of snow last night. So Susan, I'm sure you're super disappointed. All right. Ooh. Oh, it's okay. See, I could actually live in cold. I do fine in cold weather as long as the sun is shining. However, if it's gloomy, well, that is an issue with me. How about you, Caitlin? Would you rather have cold weather and sunshine, or would you rather have mild weather and clouds?
I like having the mix. I like having seasons where it's really cold and where it's really warm. So I don't know if I would enjoy having just one all the time.
That is very true. Very true. Yeah. So Irene, did you end up getting snow?
We got very wet snow, so it melted about immediately when it hit the ground. So it was pretty coming out of the sky. But once it hit the ground, it was water.
Wow.
Just a small accumulation on the cars, but not very much. But I was just worried about perennials. I had a tulip that I was worried about because it's been mowed down for the last couple of years that finally came up. So it survived. It survived.
Yay. I always think tulips are pretty hardy. And often they're planted by structures like your house. So I'm so excited that you're survived.
My neighbor did that. I noticed when I was driving away this morning, she put out covers over some of her landscaping plants. So I think she was worried about the same thing, that they might get a hard frost and that would be no good for them.
No, I was more concerned about my apple tree. But it hasn't flowered yet, so hopefully it'll be safe. So.
Well, in northern Illinois, it'll take a little bit to warm up.
Yeah, but I don't think we got snow. I didn't see any. I mean, when I was driving to the gym yesterday, I was talking to my sister hands-free on my phone, and I was like, sometimes when I look, it looks like there's snowflakes, but it's 43. Can it possibly snow if it's 43? So. But they were so intermittent, they were hard to see. So.
For sure.
Oh no. Uh-oh. So Patrick reported that their apple trees and apricot trees probably aren't going to make it. 2 inches of snow. Oh, goodness gracious. That is, yeah, super sad. But I didn't know you could grow apricot trees in Illinois. That's pretty cool. Huh.
I don't think I hear about them. Usually we hear about peaches and apples in Illinois. I can't say that I've heard of growers doing apricots, but now I can't say that. Now I know somebody.
Yeah. Well, and one of my coworkers, she has pear trees, and she gets the biggest pears I've seen. They're crazy.
Sounds delicious.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. All right, I have 11:59, so we're going to give people a few more minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. Looks like we have a small group today. So for those that are listening, if you have a friend who's interested in this topic, please encourage them to register. Because we're excited to present these presentations. All right, I have noon, and because we have lots to cover, we're going to go ahead and get started. So first, I want to welcome everyone to the Eat Fresh, Eat Local virtual series, and we're exploring ways that you can eat local and get the most out of your local produce. This is our first session of the series, and we're going to be offering these monthly throughout the growing season. Today's presentation is on community-supported agricultural subscription services. And so Caitlin will be talking about buying from local farmers. She's going to share information to help you learn different styles of CSAs and just give you some really good tips on eating local. Before we start though, I do want to ask that you make sure your microphone is muted to prevent any background noise during the presentation and to make sure your camera is turned off. So we have a strong bandwidth throughout today's presentation. Please use the chat box to ask your questions. If you're like me, you might forget. So go ahead and just type those in right away as they pop up into your head. However, we do ask that you refrain from answering other people's questions. We're going to have Caitlin answer all of your questions at the end of today's session. And I'll be keeping track, so we'll make sure that those do get answered. All right, so for those that do not know, the University of Illinois Extension is the flagship outreach effort of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. We offer research-based educational programs to residents of Illinois in all 102 counties and far beyond. So, without further ado, I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is Diane Reinhold, and I'm going to serve as your moderator today. I'm a University of Illinois Extension nutrition and wellness educator from Northwest Illinois, and I cover Joe Davis, Stevenson, and Winnebago counties, so that's at the tip top of the state. And Caitlin is a nutrition and wellness educator and registered dietitian with the Illinois Extension, serving DeWitt, Macon, and Piatt counties. So she's in central Illinois. Her work focuses on helping community members gain the knowledge, skills, and tools to live healthier and more nutritious lifestyles. This includes teaching educational programs and answering questions about heart health, diabetes, food safety, food preservation, grocery shopping, cooking, and much, much more. Without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to Caitlin.
Thank you, Diane. So we have 30 minutes together, so we are going to kind of kick it off as quickly as we can. But I want to start with the chat box and ask anyone on our call today, have you participated in a CSA before? And if you have, what are some things that you've enjoyed about having that? So as you think of those things, share them in the chat box. What's gone well with your CSAs? If you're wanting to share where, I know we have some folks that are outside of Illinois today. So if you want to share where you're finding your CSAs, let us know in the chat. I'm really curious to know if we have some folks on the call that have experience with CSAs already. So as those come into the chat box, I'll pause and have Diane read some of those. So as we go, we're going to talk about what a CSA is and looking at where is it that you can find one if you're interested in one, and walk you through some of the questions that you might ask yourself before you join a CSA. So our CSA is, come on, slide. PowerPoint has been tricky lately. It went too far. Go back, please. One more. And I am manning the slides today, so that is on my end that it's going really funny. So Diane, while I'm trying to figure out my slides, would you care to read in chat if anyone has shared
So
their thoughts?
Patrick did share that he's in Monticello and they have no CSA yet. And so he's here to learn more about CSAs. Currently, they do have a direct market beef. And again, they're just looking for information so they could possibly expand and perhaps offer a CSA.
Nice.
And he's
right.
the only one who was brave to share. So again, feel free to type in. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And we may have some folks that are completely new to CSA, so even better. So there are several styles of CSA. This is not a complete list by far. And a lot of times CSAs will kind of cherry pick in things that they like. So you may not have a true traditional CSA model. You may have something that pulls from a few different areas. So traditionally, a CSA is a model of subscription. So you go to a farm, you buy a certain dollar value, and in return, you get a season's worth of whatever's on their farm. So typically it's vegetables. Sometimes it might be fruits, there might be some eggs, there might be other foods. And you get the pickup once a week, typically through the season. And what you get is what you get. So whatever your box of food is for that share of the farm is what you get. There are some more seasonal CSAs. So typically summer is when you see CSAs pop up, but because of the ability to grow in greenhouses or use other methods to extend the season, you might get some farms that are offering winter CSAs. I believe there's one up towards Peoria that does that winter CSA style. You might get some that are doing maybe early spring if they've got some crops that are growing in spring. You can also have a shopping style, which is the one that I participated in last year was a shopping style. So you buy a certain dollar value and then you go to the farm and you essentially decide, okay, I want these, I want this, I want that. And you spend down your dollar over the season. Hopefully you'll get to zero by the end of the season. And it allows you to pick what things you want. So in a traditional CSA, like I said, the box of food is what you get. You don't have opportunity to swap in things that you do like and get rid of things that you don't like. In a shopping style, it allows you to pick just what you want. So very similar to shopping in a grocery store. You can also have CSAs that are involving multiple farms. So maybe you have a farmer that is connected for just your vegetables. And then you have a farmer that they're working with that has chickens. And so you're getting eggs from that farm. And maybe you have another farm that they're working with that sells wildflowers. And so you get more variety of things through that method. Some CSAs might even be able to offer you an entire meal. And what I mean by this is you get as many food groups as possible. You get fruits, you get vegetables, you get grain products, you might get bread, you get meats, and maybe you get dairy, like maybe you get milk. And so it may be possible for your CSA to offer an entire meal out of that subscription. There can also be set dollar types of CSAs, and these are typically nice for deciding what size you need. So maybe your subscription is for $400 worth of food over the season. Maybe they do a half size, so maybe it's $200 or $100. So you can have just that smaller value. So that's really nice to give your potential customers some flexibility. So if you have a family of 6, they may want to buy the $400 CSA box for the season, whereas someone who is, by themselves or maybe just has one other person in their household, they may only want to spend $100 on a CSA. So you might have a small, medium, and large effort. And then there are non-food CSA. So I mentioned wildflowers earlier. So there are some subscription services for wildflowers. So you get some non-food items. I am not familiar with many other styles of non-food ones besides flowers. So if anybody knows of others, let me know. So that gives you a really quick overview of what types of models you might see when you go talking to a farmer. In terms of where do I find if I have one or not, you can do a lot of different look-ins. So we've got newspapers. The CSA that I participated in last summer, that was how I found them. They put an ad in the newspaper. They got a little article from it. And I said, oh, I'm going to check them out. You might check on social media. One of the farmers that we've done CSA projects with locally in one of my counties, I've been seeing ads on Facebook for the CSA that he's going to be, he's promoting now. So coming into, May and June. You could check with your friends and family. You can do a web search on your favorite internet browser. So you could certainly do CSA near me. You could do community support and agriculture near me, and probably something will pop up. You might also, if you have a local farmers market, ask some of your farmers if they do subscription services. So you can know that they do sell at a farmers market and they also do subscription services. So that way you might get something different than what they're able to bring to market. And the USDA has a CSA directory. So if you do an internet search for the CSA directory through USDA, it'll pop up. Now, it is not something that USDA maintains itself. It does require the farmer to input their information. So if you notice, hey, you're not listed on the CSA directory, maybe invite a local farmer to add themselves to that information. So I want you to also do the 5 questions, that who, what, where, when, why, of what is this going to be used for me, and then also get some information from the farmer. So of course we want to know, what is it going to cost? How much food do I get? So can I choose from that small, medium, large option, or do I only just have this box of food that I get? Where do I do pickup? So one of the CSAs that I've worked with, they have multiple pickup sites. So on Mondays, they're at this location. On Tuesdays, they're at this location. Some of them will do multiple cities. So maybe at least for Central Illinois, that CSA I'm thinking of, he has locations in Springfield, Decatur, I believe Bloomington as well. So like you might have some different pickup spots even beyond where that farmer is located. If you are interested in how the farm is run, so if you are interested in organic produce, ask the farmer, do they follow organic practices? Organic certification is quite a process in itself. So the farmer may be doing organic practices already, just not have gone through the trouble of the certification, but you can always ask and see how they do that. If they have chickens, maybe you're curious about what they're feeding their chickens and what goes into the eggs. These are all great questions to ask that farmer. And also, what happens if you miss a pickup? So if you have that traditional style where you have to pick up your box of food maybe once a week, but you're on vacation that week and no one else can get it, or you forget because we get busy, what happens to that box? Is it something that you could send a friend or family member to pick up? Typically, those go to food pantries. So if a time slot, maybe it's 3 to 6 p.m. for pickup, and you forgot to pick up your box that week, often it will go to a local food pantry. And you can also ask yourself some questions of, what am I going to do with this produce? So if you sign up for a large share and you're thinking, I'm going to eat all these vegetables, and then you realize how much you're getting, you may go, oh, that was way too much. So how are you going to use those? Are you going to preserve them in some way, which we'll talk about? Are you going to share them with friends and family? Are you going to maybe talk to the farmer and say, actually, can I switch my subscription? Because that's just a little bit too much. And ask yourself, if you are doing more of that traditional style where you get what you get, are you going to be okay with having some things that you maybe don't like to eat? So if you are not a fan of spinach, but your box is going to have spinach, is that okay with you? And can you find another use for it, or maybe be open to trying that food again? And also, a lot of CSAs will do really unique things because they just want to try it. The farmers just want to grow it and see what it looks like and how it works, and give something new for their customers. And so you might get some unusual things that you've never seen before. And are you going to be open to that? Is that going to be something you're comfortable doing? And what I like about CSAs is they bring us back to better understanding what a growing season looks like. And so this graphic, I know is very small. We have it in a larger form in the handouts that we'll have at the end of today's lesson, so you can see it in bigger form. And it just reminds us, okay, this is when our foods are planted here in Illinois, at least. And that gives you a good idea of when can I expect some of these things to pop up. So I'm not expecting maybe the watermelon until much later in the season, but maybe spinach is ready now because it can be a cold crop. And so it can grow in these colder temperatures earlier in April and May and June, but some things we may not see until later. So it's not like going to a grocery store where things can be available year round. You are really dependent on the season and the weather and what goes on at that farm. So when people are purchasing CSA subscriptions, it can seem kind of daunting, like what is it that I'm going to get out of this? And so what I like to invite people to think about is these are things you can add to your typical recipe. So if you get strawberries in your CSA box, use those just as you normally would. It doesn't have to do anything special to them. You can always combine ingredients from multiple places. So maybe you're going to make a pasta primavera. So it's got pasta and it's got maybe some asparagus and some tomatoes and yellow summer squash. You can do a combination. So maybe you got asparagus in your CSA box and you got some cherry tomatoes from a farmer's market and you got your summer squash from the grocery store because it wasn't in season quite yet. You can still add those to your regular recipes. They're not they don't need to be anything like I only have to cook with my CSA stuff. Not at all. You can combine and use them well. I also recommend looking at how it is you're going to store. So again, these are foods that are not super different from if we're used to shopping in a grocery store. We know that some foods do better refrigerated. So strawberries are going to last a lot longer refrigerated. If we're getting onions from our CSA, those are going to last a lot longer. Somewhere in kind of a dark, cool location. And we're going to talk a little bit more about storage here in a bit, but you can always preserve the extra. So one of the CSA shares we did a couple of years ago and did a project out of it in our office, we had a CSA farmer who also grows sweet corn. And so we had a season in July where we just had a lot of ears of sweet corn in our CSA boxes for a good, 2-3 weeks. And we were fortunate, we've got a large enough staff that we did our projects and then the extra we just divided out to staff. But you could always have frozen that corn. You could have canned it. You could have done a number of things with it to preserve that extra. And then just as I mentioned before, your CSA box may get some unusual things. And so I encourage you to try new recipes. Your farmer may provide you some of those, some recipe ideas. You can always check with your local extension office and see what recipe ideas we have, or certainly do a search in your favorite internet search engine. So in terms of storage, I'm not going to go through all of the storage for every food because that would take way too long, but I want to give some examples. So green onions are something you might get in your CSA box. These are fairly tender and they will go limp after a while. They're a fresh product with a high perishable time frame. So give them a couple days, they're going to start to limp over. You can extend their shelf life by adding them to a container of water just to cover up the white portion of the green onion. Add a zip top bag to it, put it in your refrigerator and change that water out every 3 to 4 days. And you can extend the shelf life of those green onions quite a bit. 2 weeks is usually about what I get for good quality. Then they start to kind of go downhill. There's also a really nice app if you are a fan of using your smartphone. And the app is through USDA and it's called Food Keeper. And I recognize this picture is a little bit grainy, but the app will walk you through shelf life of different foods, as well as looking at if you are making a cooked recipe, what are those leftovers and what is the shelf life of those leftovers. So check that one out if you're interested in learning a little bit more about shelf life. And then I want to just share a resource. So University of Illinois Extension does have a gardening website we call Watch Your Garden Grow. And I bring this up not because I'm encouraging that you go grow your own garden, which you obviously could too, but this site has information on storing different fresh vegetables. And so I think that's a great resource if you get something very specific in your CSA that you're not used to storing for a long time. This is going to be a great website to give you some of that information on, okay, I should store this in the refrigerator or on the counter or whatever it may be. So it's not just for gardening and growing, it's also for storage. And I'm not going to show this video, but I do want you to know another resource, which is University of Illinois Extension does exist on YouTube. So come find us. And Mary Liz Wright is one of our educators on the eastern side of the state. And she has a series that has a lot of preservation videos. And so this one is about freezing strawberries. So I know she posted maybe last month that their local FFA was doing a fundraiser. So they had a whole bunch of strawberries. And I know she posted this video to remind people, hey, you can freeze your strawberries, you can make jam out of them, you can do some other things. And so this is a great video to go watch. We won't have time today, but something you can do on your own. And of course, it's gonna run. Okay. In terms of preserving, so like I said, with that CSA share from a couple of years ago, we got tons of sweet corn. So while we didn't do it, you can very much do and check out the National Center for Home Food Preservation out of the University of Georgia. And so it's not just for canning. You can preserve foods through freezing, through dehydration or drying. You can ferment foods. So maybe if you get cabbage in your CSA share, maybe you want to make some fresh sauerkraut. There's all these instructions and ways to give you that preserving information. So canning, freezing, dehydration, fermentation, all here. These are tested recipes, researched recipes. So follow them as directed. And I'm gonna check my time. Okay, so just to finish up, I want to share some of the unusual things that have popped up in CSA boxes for our office over the couple of years. So just got two of them that I'm going to share. And one of them, the first one is a delicata squash. So this one is fairly small. They do grow bigger, but it is a winter squash that has a very tender skin, more similar to a summer squash, like a zucchini. So you can eat the rind, the skin of this particular squash. And so I want to have us watch this video, very short, and it just shows a very simple roasting method. So that, to me, that's such an interesting vegetable because it has the interior of a winter squash where you need to scoop the seeds out. But because the skin is so tender, you can eat it without peeling it, which is kind of a nice feature because if anyone has ever peeled a winter squash, they've got a very thick skin. And so they take some effort to get cut up. And then there we go. Then the next food I want to highlight is kohlrabi, which I think has had some popularity several decades ago because I've done classes with older adults, and they go, oh, I ate kohlrabi all the time. And so I think it had a peak, and then it's gone out of popularity, and I think it's back in popularity again. And so this one is it's in the family with broccoli and cabbage, and it has kind of a look like a turnip a little bit, and it can be eaten raw, it can be eaten cooked. This video is going to be a cooked version, and this is the recipe that's in the handout for this lesson. All right, so just to finish up, if anyone has experience with a CSA, and you had a new or unfamiliar food in your box, let me know in the chat box. I'm curious to see what kinds of things may have popped up in your CSA shares over the years. But otherwise, that concludes our lesson, and I'm going to transition back over to Diane and let her finish up our session today.
All right, Caitlin. Well, that was a great presentation. Lots of good information. Thank you again, Caitlin. And that concludes today's presentation. And we're going to take questions now. However, for those that want to leave now, before we get to the questions, you're welcome to leave. I'm just going to ask that you please take time to fill in and answer our survey. I'm going to put that in the chat box here. And put that in there first. Okay. So the survey will then take you directly to, after completing the survey, it'll take you directly to our handouts. This presentation has been recorded, and it will be made available within the next 48 hours on the State Nutrition and Wellness website. And that website is go.illinois.edu/nutrition well. And I'll put that website in the chat box as, in addition. So let me put that in there. There's our website. And again, there's lots of other awesome recordings that we've done from the past. And because we want to be respectful of everyone's time, I want to thank everyone for attending, and we're going to get into the questions. But before we get into the questions, I just want to ask everyone that if you haven't already, please consider registering for next month's webinar. It will be held on Wednesday, May 19th, and we're going to be hearing from Jenna Smith, and she's going to be presenting on Sample the Season. So she'll discuss what kinds of fruits and vegetables you can expect when you arrive at an Illinois farmer's market. And she'll share tips on preparing these fruits and vegetables. But best of all, she'll provide you with inspiration for ways to use them at your dinner table. You can discover the art of menu planning and take away new recipes. So please join us in May. And with that, oh, one other little tidbit I wanted to share. If you're looking for more information about Eat Fresh, Eat Local, we'll be posting additional tips and information all season long, whether you're looking for ideas to eat healthy, use unique produce that you've purchased from your local growers, or perhaps you've grown yourself, or if you want to preserve your summer bounty. Please follow us on Facebook, and you just need to look for University of Illinois Extension around the table at family.finance.food. So go ahead and please follow us. We'd love for you to join us and get additional resources. So with that, we'll go into the questions. And okay. We'll start at the top. And the first question, a lot of people, Caitlin, were looking for information about perhaps starting a CSA. And a lot of people have not participated yet in a CSA. Carmen shared that they're a grower with a small urban farm and garden, and they have lots of neighbors who want to purchase produce from them. And they don't have a model yet for what type of CSA. So hopefully some of the information you've provided will be super beneficial. And Bridget did share that she has seen non-food items found in CSA boxes, such as lavender products, beeswax, candles, lip balm, just to name a few, because you had asked in addition to the flowers. And Carmen also asked, has anyone seen ground cherry tomatoes in a box? So when you say ground cherry tomatoes, I don't know if that's a variety of cherry tomatoes or what you mean by that, Carmen. So maybe you can refresh, unless Caitlin, do you have an idea?
I'm not familiar either if that is a specific variety. I've heard of ground cherries, but I've not heard of ground cherry tomatoes. So if you've got some more information to share, I'm curious. I've not seen it. A variety, okay.
Okay.
And it varies because some CSAs will do large slicing tomatoes so that people can can them. But my preference is the smaller, more cherry style tomatoes. So, and it's something you can always ask if you have a farmer that's nearby. They're always looking for feedback on what their customers are looking for. So to have an idea of a variety that you want to have them grow, it's always worth asking.
All right. So Tony asks if you have any recommendations where they can find their nearest CSA subscription. For subscription purposes. So did you mention just Googling or looking at your local newspaper?
Yeah, so you'll have to keep your eye out. So you might have an ad in the newspaper. You might just have to go, if you've got access to internet, go do a search on Google or whatever your preferred search engine is for a CSA that's near you. Check with your farmers markets, check with friends and family. Try the USDA's CSA directory. They will list a lot of them, but it is farmer entry. So if your farmer hasn't entered and added themselves to that directory, you might be missing out on them. But check all the places you can think to find a CSA that's near you.
So here's a really great question, Caitlin. When people receive their CSA boxes, is it by weight or is it by product? What do people typically like to find in their CSA boxes? And then do you say the box is going to weigh X number of pounds, or how is that typically done?
Sure. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of variety on models in terms of CSA. So some models will be very traditional, like you will get X pounds of food in this box every week, and that is what you get. But some CSAs will allow kind of a swap. So maybe you are not a fan of tomatoes, and so you might take them out of your box, and your farmer may allow you to put something else in that's kind of of equal weight or equal value. It's kind of an endless option and flexibility in terms of that. In terms of typical weight, I don't know. So one thing I will recommend, so my role within Extension is nutrition education. And so I would recommend checking with a small farms educator that's in your Extension office. They'll have more specific information on things like weight of boxes, figuring out the value of your foods and how to price them accordingly. They will have a little bit more of that knowledge than I will. So our small farms team, they've got a number of webinars similar to us that are recorded and found on our Extension site. So if you want to check with them, they will have those kind of specific answers to those questions.
Okay, here's another good question. How does one keep the cost of the boxes affordable? And I'm thinking, with wood pulp and everything going up in price, can the boxes be reused, or how is that commonly done?
Yeah, so at least for the CSAs I've been involved with, they will either do waxed cardboard boxes, which they essentially the farmer has just built into the price that these boxes will disappear from the farm once that customer takes them. But, and usually there's some concern of we can't take the boxes back once they've touched a customer's hands or car seat or house or kitchen, because there may be contamination concerns. So you might encourage future customers to bring reusable produce bags, bring their own box if they want, and so that you can essentially unload the box from the farmer into the customer's vehicle of choice. So that could be, again, a bag, their own box or tote, and the farmer can then keep that box and reuse it for another customer or another week. So kind of, have to decide how do you want to advertise to your customers, or for someone like me, I like the idea of bringing my own bags and getting to just have everything in my own container. If you're doing the shopping style CSA, you probably will need to bring your own containers. They probably will not have those available for you. And I say on the chat box, yeah, delivery could be an option too. So again, you might be able to unload into a customer's, maybe they've got a cooler or something on their porch or a basket. So you can unload into the customer's receptacle of choice, and then make sure you've got, the farmer, you still have your products that you can reuse later.
So you said delivery is an option, so that would probably be at an additional cost, or
yeah, so it'll probably be a built-in cost, or you may do a separate charge. A lot of CSAs will do free delivery within a certain mile distance. So I know one CSA I had looked at it was going to be like a 20-mile drive, and they only delivered within 5 miles. So that is another style. Absolutely. If you don't want to have people come to you, you can deliver to them. That's a great service to offer. A lot of people will use that. I've got a CSA right now, the same one that I worked with last summer. They're working with a local pharmacy. So they have a cooler set up for their eggs. So I can go to the pharmacy and buy eggs rather than driving to the farm to get eggs. And they're going to do the same thing with produce, as I can pre-order online what produce I want, and they will deliver to the pharmacy. Again, they're building that price into the cost of the food. So I know I'm going to pay more for my eggs and my vegetables in that route because they're delivering it to me rather than going to a grocery store. But for me, the quality is, A-okay.
All right, well, I want to thank everyone for staying on for our presentation. I do believe we've answered all of the questions. I did post the evaluation link in the chat box one more time. We have another question that comes in, and the question is, how does one protect themselves if they're using multiple farms in a box?
That is a great question. I am probably going to, and obviously this is very different from a COVID time period versus a non-COVID time period. But I'm probably going to defer that question to our small farms team. So Carmen, if you want to get in touch with me or with Diane, I know Diana sent out the contact to remind people this webinar is coming. If you want to check in with her, and she can forward your question to me, I can connect you with our small farms team. But typically you're going to be following good manufacturing, it's good manufacturing practices that's specific to farming. So that would be it. That's why I'll defer you to our small farms team.
All right, any more questions before we let you go?
Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.